Hello, everybody, and a warm welcome to you. We have another of our business conversations with somebody who's very interesting in the business world in Russia. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Andrei Kutukov, who is the Managing Director for Microfocus Russia and CIS. I've been working with Andrei for many years now, and it's a pleasure working, Andrei, with you and your team in Microfocus. And could you kick us off today with a little bit of personal background? What's been your career and how long you've been working with Microfocus?
Thank you, Danny. It's pleasure to be here. Pleasure to talk to you as always, and really enjoy it all the time. Yeah, I'm in IT industry for more than 20 years. Actually, right after I got my master degree, which was also in IT. So I'm an IT guy from the very beginning. For the last 10 years, I've been specifically in the software industry. First in Hewlett Packard when I was managing the software division of that company and been through many transformations. And after the spin merge in the 2017, actually I joined the Microfocus together with the Hewlett Packard software. We joined the Microfocus company, which I'm running right now. This is my short story.
Great, super. Well, that gives you a lot of experience and knowledge to benchmark with. We've had COVID 2020. We might have, certainly parts of the world will have COVID 21. Just how has it been globally, first of all, before we talk about Russia? How has the last couple of years and this year globally for the IT industry and Microfocus? And I think for a non-IT specialist, we could imagine that there's been some really difficult sectors and businesses, and yet maybe on the other hand, some booming ones as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a very interesting time. I mean, like for all of us, of course, and all the industries, but for IT, it actually was a good time. Let me start a little bit from what Microfocus is actually doing. Our main goal is to help different businesses to go through the digital transformation. I mean, this is not a new term. I mean, many companies are going through the digital transformation, but the pandemic actually increased this trend big time, right? So what are we actually doing? We are helping companies to develop their applications faster and with a better quality. We are helping companies to secure their data and their applications and their environment, and we are providing tools to manage their data and get more insights out of it. Last but not least is the cloud adoption. That's also a big part of our business. We're helping companies to go through the cloud adoption and through this transformation. Now to the pandemic and the effect on the business. Obviously, you saw it, right? Right after the big drop in the shares across all the industries and all the segments, we have been observing through the 2020 very fast growth of, first of all, digital companies and IT companies. And I think if you look to the IT sector specifically, already I think in autumn, the whole gap from the pandemic and the share price was already beaten, and the share price became even higher than before the pandemic. And that of course has its reason behind, because many of the IT companies, especially in the consumer segment and digital companies, were reporting the record sales and record business results. People were staying at home. The way people were consuming everything was through the applications. So the role of applications have significantly increased because of the pandemic. It was already there. And the trend of applications actually running our life is 10 years old, or even more than 10 years old, right? Mm-hmm. But during the pandemic, mobile applications, specifically mobile applications, became a major interface between people and the major way of accessing all kinds of services, be it transportation while we stayed at home, but so it's not that applicable, but still. Information, news, entertainment, shopping, everything is and was online during the pandemic time. And I think this trend will stay for a long time. Of course, after economy reopen and the countries starting to reopen, people getting back to, let's say, normal life. But still, I think the consumption behavior and the way the services are consumed and the way the goods are consumed is different. I mean, it will stay in this, let's say, hybrid model. And so I don't think that let's say, buying behavior will get back to where it was before the pandemic. That is why the applications are getting bigger and bigger in our life. And so those companies who were not successful, in adapting to that, were struggling. But those who been successful and really tried and get the best of the results in adopting those changes, they really got big increase in sales and big increase in business. Again, it is mostly for consumer business, but in B2B business as well, it is less. Let's say this trend is less strong, but it's still there. And for all of us in all the industries, the quality, the interface of applications became completely vital for the success of any business. That's why, I mean, we in Micro Focus observed that, and the demand specifically in the application development and application security, we feel it on the market across the globe, and actually not that different in Russia, I would say.
Great, Andrei. That's a good opener on the dynamics globally in general. And that's the obvious question now for me is regarding Russia and CIS, but obviously Russia first maybe. How does Russia replicate and copy that? And of course, what's different in Russia and what different dynamics in the market?
I think that the situation in Russia was more or less copying in terms of IT market, right? More or less copying the world trends, but of course we had some specialities. Well, in Russia, I don't think that we been very much used to work from home before the pandemic. While international companies, they're quite used to it, especially IT companies. Most of the Russian companies, they don't. Even those who were IT, they were still working from the offices, developing software in the offices, etc. And that's a big change. And when this change, when the people were put on the work from home basis, this triggered very big wave of, first of all, hardware consumption. And the reason for that is that all the businesses, they have started to build the infrastructure to support this work from home, because this is a big change in the infrastructure. And secondly, and which is very important and very interesting for us, it also triggered big interest for security products, right? Information security products, because the work from home obviously requires significant change in the security infrastructure. You need to protect the identity and manage the identity of the employees in a much more careful way, because it brings much more risks as the people are accessing your office, your systems outside of the normal office perimeter, right, and network perimeter. And that's a big change. So the more digital we are, the more our identity is a target. And on average, we see now that today from the smartphone, you can get access to everything, right? And that's and you have all the sensitive and relevant data on your PC, on your smartphone, and then you're accessing also the corporate data from your PC and from your smartphone, being outside of the office and being outside of the security network. And that's triggered, of course, a big interest and big infrastructure change in the security, in the information security part of the business. But actually, it was not. It was very big wave in Russia, I would say. But the security side, the security wave was not only specific to Russia. It was everywhere, because everywhere in the world. You probably read a lot of articles during the last several months, right? That companies were really struggling because of some security breaches, some information stolen, and that could, in today's world, it can completely ruin reputation and actually the business of almost any company, because all the companies, they are storing the sensitive data, the people data, the client data, right? And this becomes the major asset, I would say, for almost every business, right? And the more digital is business, the more important this asset is. So I think Russia, the work from home part was a bit different from, let's say, Western countries, where this work from home was, let's say, more adopted before the pandemic. For Russia, it became really big change, right? But now, interestingly, we can observe that I'm speaking with many customers from different industries, and listen, many of those who could not imagine, like for example, financial industry, who could not imagine that they are working from home, that half of their people are working from home in the past, they are now telling me that they will probably keep it for, let's say, at least partially, let's say 30% of employees, or let's say 2 days out of 5 days a week, people will continue to work from home. And because they have already invested into this infrastructure and they keep investing into it, and doesn't make much sense, to reverse it back. On the other hand, they can save some cost on the office space, which is also a trend now. Not a good news for the landlords, but I think many companies, they are becoming more and more, let's say, those who can do it, of course. I mean, in the factories, it's not that possible, right? When you're working in the factory to work from home, but in the businesses that are, let's say, fully digital, why not? And that's how they continue to do it.
Yeah. I'm going to switch us around with a few topics, Andrei, but I'll stay with the work from home thing. Talking with some of our clients, in home improvements, kitchens, and so on, they've also had a very good year in Russia, a boom year for many of them. But the point they made was, Danny, people renovate their home or buy a new kitchen every 5-7 years or whatever, or 9 years. On the IT side, Andrei, so everybody's invested big time in setting this up. What's the kind of renewal stage for IT home office, do you think? Will companies need to renovate their IT every 5 years or 2 years, or what's the average maturity time?
Well, first of all, it is this average is constantly shrinking, right? 10 years, 10 years back, I think normal way for the personal computer or laptop was like 5 years. I mean, between changes, right, or between the major upgrade. Now it's like 2-3 years, so it's getting smaller and smaller. And for the corporate infrastructure, if we're talking about hardware, I think it's also shrinking. I would say 3 to 4 years for servers is something that is on the industry average. But when we speak about software products, I mean, it's a never-ending development, I would say. There is, of course, interestingly, I can give you our own example. If, let's say, 5 years, we've been doing a major release of each and every software product that we make, once or twice a year maximum, right? Now, for some products, we are doing it on, let's say, 5-6 times a year, which is a big change, right?
Yeah.
And the reason for that is that, first of all, of course, it is a very competitive market, but also the speed of development is much higher, and the efficiency of development is now much higher. So the speed of introduction of new features and functions and the demand of the new features and functions on the market is unprecedented, I would say, right? And I don't know if there is a limit for that, or we will end up, having a new release of software almost every week. Could be so in a couple of years. Because if you look now at the mobile applications, again, I'm referring back to the mobile world, the speed of introduction of the new things is even faster. I don't know how many times, let's say, a month Facebook is being updated. I mean, Facebook app, for example, right? I think quite times within months. And the same with majority of mobile applications, because this is the way they compete on the market. And in the mobile applications world, if you are not, let's say, improving in a speed that is expected, or if someone is faster and is better than you, then it's very easy to lose the customer. Because some of the research they show that if the user don't like the application, he will not most likely he will remove it and will never get back to it. Simple as that. So it's a very challenging but also very let's say interesting industry right now.
For sure. We've looked at consumer and home work from home a good bit there. Just like take us maybe briefly to the other down. You mentioned in passing, corporate world. I'm also thinking of Russian companies and the Russian government. What IT digital trends, as a potential and actual supplier to them. And then my related question is, there would be a cliche prejudice that, Russian companies, Russian government, not very good at digital. So where are they on the digital spectrum? So what are the trends and how is digitalization for Russian companies and Russian government?
I think we are doing relatively good, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it of course depends on depends on the industry. But if we talk about government, I think that we are on the edge. As simply as that. Because if you look at how during the last couple of years the services improved, the services that are provided in an electronic way from the government improved. I mean, for us, for simple citizens, now you can deal almost with every situation related to your, let's say, relationship or interaction with the government. You can manage it through the application. And I think the speed of the service and the quality of the service improved greatly. So I think that on the government side of the house, I mean, the digital services provided to the citizens, I think we are in a good shape, really in a good shape.
I agree.
Then if you look in the financial industry, I think, again, one of the best in class. And the reason for that is that the Russian financial industry is relatively young, and after the Soviet Union, right, collapsed, and that's why we simply do not have that much heritage, which actually allowed our companies to develop much faster in a digital way. So they were more digital from the very beginning than some of the Western financial companies. Again, I think most of the financial institutions are doing very well in a penetration, in a digital penetration, let's say, right? They are introducing new functionalities, and you probably know that during the pandemic, people had relatively more time. And many of the people in Russia started to invest, and there was a real boom of the private investments. I think the number of private accounts on the Moscow exchange was grew in this year like 10 times more than 10 years in the past altogether, cumulative.
Absolutely.
Right? And that was really, and of course, all the financial institutions, they invested hardly into developing the specific applications, trading applications, actually, to allow people in a convenient way to access the stock market.
Yeah.
And I think it was partially triggered, and the speed of this change was partially also triggered by pandemic.
Absolutely, yeah. And I could follow up in a semi-jokey way on that. In the West, we saw that retail investors picking up as well, but also in the West, you saw a massive increase in gambling and use of casino websites. Now, one could argue maybe that stock exchanges are another form of casinos, but they're more reputable at least, so that's good. And the numbers, you're absolutely right. Andrei, in absolute terms, they're still small in Russia, retail investors, real individuals, but it is certainly picking up big time. Another theme, and then I want to come back, of course, to some of the things we've touched on, I'll say, to you, what are the key dynamics and the key drivers? And then I'd like you to elaborate again on mobile and data, customer data, and then security a bit more. But, it's clear that we're seeing around the world in a lot of business and in IT, the de-globalization of digitalization and localization of many things, including IT. It's happening globally. We're seeing it certainly with China, and we're seeing it with Russia and some other countries. How does that dynamic, affect your business and your thinking short term and medium term?
It is another big trigger for, I think, IT industry in general. You're absolutely right. The main driver of this deglobalization, right, is actually information, right, and data protection. Because, as I mentioned, let's say the importance of information and data and the sensitivity is growing very fast, right? So we have. Let's say you can now have a full picture of every citizen in a digital world, right? What you are doing, what you are consuming. The whole life is there, right? And of course, the importance of protecting this identity and protecting this data is growing. And that's why governments across the globe, they are introducing new regulations on that. It is obvious. Even inside EU, there are more and more regulations being introduced that not all the data can be stored abroad, for example. Even in the same EU, even in the different EU countries. So the countries are getting more and more closed on the way they want the sensitive data and the private data to be handled. And that, of course, brings a big wave of investment into the local infrastructure and into the data protection, into the data analysis, and into storing data within the country. And it also brings the complexity, by the way, on the cloud adoption, because you cannot use, many companies, they are very much restricted to the use of the cloud that is abroad. So they are forced to either use local clouds or build their own private clouds. Of course, majority of customers, big customers, they are living again in kind of hybrid world. So they have still on-premise infrastructure for the most important things. Some of the less important things, or I would not say less important, but less sensitive, like development or new, let's say, applications development or new, let's say, functions being introduced, that they can use cloud for the development, for testing, and those kind of things. Local cloud, for example. And for some very little portion of activities, they can use even the cloud that is, let's say, global one. So it's a combination, right? And the more, let's say, the more sensitive the business of the company is to the customer data, let's say, or the more sensitive information is operated within the business environment of the company, the less, let's say, international cloud is used. And it's not only in Russia. It's, I think, this is a trend of all the markets, and that's why actually the big international companies and big international cloud providers, like we all know them, like Amazon, they are building more and more, let's say, data centers outside of US and outside of the normal locations to be able to run the business not only in United States but also in other countries. So they are investing into this kind of infrastructure, and that's not the only example. I think the majority of the global companies, they are doing that. Those companies that are handling customer information and private data.
Right. Thank you very much, Andrei, because that was going to be one of my follow-up questions, but you've answered it great on the cloud and the hybrid and how people are responding to that. So thank you. As I said, I'd like to come back and just flesh out a little bit. You've touched upon it several times. Maybe we can do it one by one. On the mobile applications in your life, again, just any further comments that you have on that? And again, I'm thinking you were very good there on explaining Russia, the financial sector, the government, how it's on the edge and ahead. On mobile applications in general for Russia, and then comparing Russia with other markets. Again, I think I know the answer myself, but how young is the mobile market in Russia, and what are the drivers of it, and where do you see it going in 3-5 years?
I think the mobile application market is young by definition. Yeah. It's young everywhere, right? So yeah. It's the same everywhere because it was triggered by the mobility penetration, which started like 12 or 13 years ago, right? Mm. And then, of course, in size of the market is not comparable to some of the Western countries and Eastern countries because it is simply related to the number of people, right? I mean, I think the biggest mobile application market is obviously China. And it is going to continue to be the biggest mobile application market, right? And that's also, it's also about development. Who is developing most of the applications? I think that China is starting to lead the pack really here, and but it's a very long discussion because you see now the government are starting to fight this trend, and there are even governments that are trying to somehow stop some of the foreign applications working on the local market, like you probably heard about the TikTok and etc. Yeah. And the initiative in US, to stop using TikTok within the country. So I think it is going to be an interesting time now how the government are trying to somehow protect or localize the mobile application market. From the development point of view, I think we are again. We don't have that much people, right? So obviously the market size is less. But I would say from the quality and innovation that we do in our applications that are produced locally, I think we are very, very good. We are completely on the very competitive level, if you wish, right? So and many of our companies that are playing on this market, they are developing applications not only for the local market but also for the global market. And you can name it, right? I mean, I think Telegram is being used now almost everywhere in the world, right? Yeah. It's originally from Russia. And the big difference, another big difference is coming from the, I think, internet past, because Russia is one of the few countries that have its own Google, own eBay, own everything, right? And of course, those companies, they are of course coming to mobile because if you compare, for example, how it was used, I don't know, 5 to 10 years back, then of course now most of the access to those type of the systems and services like Facebook or eBay or something like that is going through mobile applications, not from home, not from the PC, not through the browser, but from the mobile application. And that, of course, triggers it much and much. That's why I said the speed of development is growing constantly, right? So the demand for the quality, for the performance, for the security and capacity of applications is growing permanently. So I think this market is going to continue to develop very fast, and is going to be the fastest, one of the fastest, let's say, markets in terms of development.
Agreed. No, thanks. I was just checking, and thanks very much for that. Then I'd like to bring us back, and then just to let you know what I'm doing, I want to look just to flesh out again, and we can do it together, the customer data and security issues, if there was anything you think you'd like to elaborate on. And then one of my closing questions, but not the last one, will be on human resources and talent in the industry and what you've seen. So really now, Andrei, you touched upon customer data and security several times, but is there anything you sort of, left out or would like to elaborate on?
So I think it was a good discussion on that, right? Just to recap, the volumes and the importance of the data is growing, right? So the importance of data security and identity management keep growing. So the faster the applications market is developing, so the more important it's going to be. That's why we see that the cybersecurity companies also, the shares of the cybersecurity companies also showed very good dynamic during pandemic, and still after pandemic, and we assume that it's going to be after pandemic this year, hopefully. But we see that the dynamic that cybersecurity market is showing is let's say way faster than the rest of the software, let's say, at least industry. And the reason for that is what we discussed. I mean, the rising importance, the cost of the data is compromised. The cost is rising significantly, and it can really become a kind of make or break thing for almost any type of business. And the more digital the business, the more important it is for them.
No, thanks. I just wanted to make sure we covered those points, and I feel we have, with pleasure. Just as background, Andrei, I've been talking with hundreds of executives this year and the last 12 months. And on the HR side, one of the themes that's come over very nicely, I have to say, I think historically the quality of Russian staff and talent has historically been very, very strong. I think maybe over the years it deteriorated a little bit, but nothing significantly. And I would always put Russian talent, in the top 10 minimum of the world, and often in the top 5 and even the top 3. Anyway, the feedback I've got from managing directors of nearly every company I speak with is that the Russian staff responded to the crisis well. One of our executives from a pharmaceutical company said to me last week, and I didn't prompt him, he just said, my Russian staff is the best in the world by a long way. They're phenomenal. I knew they were good, but I was shocked. Full stop. End of story. I'm quoting almost exactly. Now, not everybody is like that, and they're not always all perfect. But and sorry, one thing to share with you, which Andrei, I was asked famously a couple of years ago, Danny, are the Russians good at managing crisis? And I said, yes, they are, because the last 100 years has been a crisis for them. And and also another thing that's come out on that point, several executives have said to me, our Russian staff have responded better than our European or American staff on that basis. What's been your experience from your own company and what you're hearing from other people on anything with HR and talent?
Well, I think I totally agree with what you said, right? I think that the quality of the staff that we have in country, specifically in IT industry, is very good. And this is, by the way, one of the reasons why we do have our own Google, our own Facebook, our own everything, right? Because if we would not have good, let's say, IT people here on the ground, I mean, it would hardly be possible. I think it's the fundamental education was always, let's say, on the strong side in back in the Soviet Union and same
Absolutely.
in Russia, which is definitely important for the digital world, right? Because the digital is fundamental thing, is mathematics at the end of the day, and algorithms. So from this point of view, I think that's one of the reasons why digitalization in Russia is going smoothly and fastly, because we do have the right people for that in country, right? Yeah, but another point I wanted to make is that the Russian people were, and I made this point already on the work from home. Most of the companies and actually their staff were not used to it in the past. So if the many international companies, they are used to it and people are used to it, then in Russia they didn't used to it, honestly, right? And I would not. I mean, in our environment, in our company, it was not that much big change, but even our people were kind of and still willing to at least partially get back to the office. And I think the reality is that for many people, let's say their home offices are not, let's say their homes are not designed for the home offices. Let me bring it like that.
Understood.
And yeah, that's unfortunately our reality, right? And for most Russian people, their homes, their living, they are not designed to build a proper home office, and it's quite difficult, I would say, to concentrate when you're working out of kitchen and you have your wife and few kids together with you. I mean, it's a bit challenging, I would say.
Yeah.
I think that's a difference for with the Western world, because in the Western world, I would say many of the people, they're first of all more used to it, and their, let's say, home offices are better set up.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. This was challenging part of the pandemic, really challenging. But as you said, Russian people are quite fast in adapting to the things. So now people really consider the work from home as a possible option for the future, and let's say make a proper adjustment to their way of life and to the design of their homes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Closing question on this, Andrei. When I'm speaking to non-IT companies, one of the drivers for HR is we want digital people. So, we're going to have an e-commerce business or a digital internally. We need more digital capable people. So there's a premium on salaries for those people and so on. So my two questions. Within your own company and the IT industry, we've just said there are a lot of bright people in that. My question is, are there enough within the IT industry for the capabilities and expansion you need? And then also, I'm just curious, it just came to me now, is the IT industry seeing any poaching? Are the consumer product people and retailers and pharma people, are they trying to poach IT people from IT companies, or is that not the capability they want? So are there enough good IT people in Russia for what you need, number one? And is there poaching going on yet?
No, it's not enough. And the reflection of it is that the recent research shows that IT people are most expensive ones. Yep. If you just get the salary, on average salary report for the last couple of years, IT is number one of the average salary, even above financial people, etc., financial industry, etc. And that's a sign of lack of the proposal. I mean, so the demand is bigger than the proposal, and that's why the cost is going up. On the poaching, I mean, I think that yes, let's say IT becomes, as the digital as the most of the industries are getting more and more digital, IT become part of the industry, as simple as that. So I would say It's not that pharma or finance or financial industry or someone else is poaching people from the IT companies. They are just poaching the whole industry. It's really like that. And there are many, kind of our biggest Russian bank, if you know, they want to be a Google. They don't want to be a bank anymore, and they are investing heavily exactly into becoming the information technology company and digital company, not the traditional bank. And many of those players on the financial market and other markets, they are doing the same. All of them are investing into the digital ecosystem. Many of them, let's say, investing into the digital ecosystems and actually getting bigger in terms of getting more IT company than it used to be in the past. But by the way, the bank that I'm referring to is the biggest IT company in Russia in terms of number of employees.
Wow.
It's simple as that.
Okay, I did not know that. I know who it is, and I know they're very big, but wow, interesting. And also, sorry, just I'll give you a chance to close off on anything, Andrei. You talk about this, the convergence of business, IT, with everything is becoming, banks are becoming IT companies. And of course, the automotive companies as well are very much becoming IT component integrated. And they may yet they'll become electric. And then via that route, they'll become even more IT as well. So definitely for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And they are exchanging data with each other, with external world, which we call IoT, Internet of Things, right? And this is another big trend, which is one of the, let's say, biggest influencers into the growth of data amounts.
Absolutely. Well, Andrei, thank you. I'm finishing off. We're on a soft finish time, as I said we would be. Anything you want to wrap up with?
Yeah, I think that we covered the most important things. Just to recap on that, I think that the trend and the importance of application security and data management is, and of course, the hybrid infrastructure management is going to be in the permanent growth, in permanent importance, right? And companies will continue their investment in all the segments. They will continue their investment into those areas. That's why I think that for the IT market in general, I'm looking forward to it, and I see that the future in quite bright colors. Yeah.
Great. Well, in closing off, Andrei, I would say for those who listen to the recording, we'll be distributing this to all our group members, and it's a nice timing because, as you know, Andrei, you contributed to our digital report, which is a written report. So I think this conversation and that will go nicely in tandem together. So that's excellent. And I'm also looking, Andrei, to working with you and your colleagues in the coming weeks and months on other activities. And we'll be having our many joint webinars and so forth. And then, of course, the next exciting thing is I'm looking forward to being live with you and your colleagues again in Moscow and Russia, and the sooner the better.
Yeah, I hope for it as well. I'm looking forward to it really, because I think that is something that still we are missing big time, even with the speed of the digital adoption. But the let's say offline events and offline meetings is something that people are really missing across the globe.
Indeed, Andrei. Thank you very much. Until the next time.
Thank you, Danny. Nice talking to you. Bye bye.